Everyone, today we are going to start with the topic fractions. So let us see what all subtopics we'll cover under this topic. So to begin with, we'll see what are fractions, then how to represent a fraction on a number line, then we'll discuss about various types of fractions. Also we'll see how to compare different fractions, then we'll include fractions on the number line, then some equivalent fractions, then addition of fractions, and also we'll cover the subtraction of fractions. So let us begin with the topic. To begin with, what are fractions? So a fraction is basically defined as a part of a whole thing, right? Now a whole thing in what manner? If a complete thing is given to you and you divide that thing equally into various parts, then each part of it will be called as a fraction of it. Okay, and you already know this thing. It can also be expressed as a ratio of two integers. That means in general we can say fraction is a number which can be expressed in the form of P upon Q, right? In the form of P upon Q, where P and Q are both natural numbers. So can we say that P and Q format any number if we write in this form, where Q cannot be equals to 0, but of course P can be equal to 0 in this case. So what are fractions is now very clear. We know that it can be expressed as P upon Q, and you know that P is called as the numerator because it is the upper part of the fraction, and the lower part, that means Q, it is called as the denominator. For example, if we see a fraction 1/4, so here 1 is the numerator, then we have 4 which is the denominator. Also, how do we read it? It is read as 1/4. So first the numerator is spoken, then the denominator is spoken. So that gives you 1/4 in this case. But in general we say that it is P upon Q format, and P and Q can be any whole number, but Q cannot be equal to 0. Let us see how we can represent a part as a whole. So fraction is a number that represents part of a whole, right? The whole may be a single object here, or it may be a group of objects also. Like you may say in a group of students, that means in a class. If I say half of a class come out, that means half of the students from a class come out. That means from a group of objects we are taking a portion out of it. Similarly, we can say that fraction can be written as numerator upon denominator. For example, we can say 3 upon 7, we can say 1 upon 8, and can we say that 3 upon 7 is greater than 1 upon 8? So let us discuss, is it right, is it not, in the later segments here. So to continue with it, let's see. You can see a part, a square, which is divided into, just see how many strips it is divided into. If you count, if you start counting them, you find here first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh. That means a whole thing is divided into 7 equal parts. Equal is a very important word over here, because if it is not equally divided, then we won't get a fraction. For example, if this is a square and I divide it into 2 parts in this manner, that one part is this and the second part is this. So will you say that this is 1/2? No, because this is not half of the complete thing. So to get a fraction, this is very important that all the parts here are equal, absolutely equal to each other. Now, out of 7 parts, how many are shaded here? We can see there are 3 parts shaded. So can we say 3 out of 7 parts here are shaded? That means we can write the fraction as 3 upon 7, because out of a whole quantity divided into 7 equal parts, 3 are shaded. So 3/7 part is shaded in this case. Now, next let's see how much is shaded in this. So what is the total parts into which a circle is divided here? Let us just count again. So if we begin with, we see first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 6th, 7th and 8th. there are total 8 parts into which circle is divided. And now out of 8 parts we find only one part which is shaded. That means we can say one part out of 8 parts are shaded. So this portion will represent 1 upon 8 fraction. So I hope how to draw a fraction part of a whole is now clear to you. Now let us see how to represent a fraction on a number line. Now you are familiar with what a number line is. So as it is very clear from the word number line, that means a line on which numbers are written. That is called as a number line. Now how can we represent a fraction on a number line? So for that, let us take an example. Suppose I want to represent 1 upon 2 on a number line. That means first of all I have to draw a line on which some numbers are marked like 0 and 1. Because we know 1 upon 2 is half and half lies between 0 and 1. So when 0 to 1 is divided into 2 equal parts, then I can say one part will be called as 1 upon 2. And so this cross will represent 1 over 2. In this way, if you want to represent 1 upon 3, then what you are going to do? You are just going to first draw a line which represents, on which you can represent some numbers like 0, because 1 upon 3 is again 1 divided into 3 equal parts. That means out of 3 we have to take 1. So 1 upon 3 is also smaller than 1. So what we will do? We mark from 0 to 1 and divide it into 3 equal parts. So when we divide from 0 to 1 into 1, 2 and 3 equal parts, we need to say one part out of 3. So out of first, second and third part, we just want one part. That means from here to here if I'll go, I'll move a distance of 1 over 3. So this portion of a whole quantity will be called as 1 upon 3. Same thing you can represent 2 upon 3 on the same number line. Like 2 upon 3 means 2 parts out of 3. So out of 3 equal parts we need 2 parts, first part and second part. So this will represent 2 upon 3. So in this way you can represent a fraction on a number line also. Now let us discuss it in more detail. So 1 by 2 is marked in between 1 and 2 exactly. Now suppose if you have to represent 1 by 3, as we have already seen there, but first is to draw the number line. Then we know that half, you already are familiar with 1 upon 2. So half is less than 1 but it is greater than 0. That means we have to divide the gap between 2 equal parts and then mark 1 upon 2. So for 1 upon 3, we have to divide it into 3 equal parts like this. So from 0 to 1, we divide it into first, second and third part. And the first part here will represent 1 over 3. Now you can easily tell the second part will represent 2 over 3 in this case. Moving on to the next segment, that is types of fractions. So how many types of fractions are there, or what are the different types of fractions? So to begin with, the proper fractions. What are proper fractions? See, you may find certain fractions like 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 7 and so on. Or you may find like 2 by 3, 4 by 6, 9 by 8, 4 whole number 1 upon 2, right? Which you have already read in your grade 5. But what are these different type of fractions classified into? So we classify them as proper fraction first, in which we cover those fractions whose numerator is smaller than the denominator. That means if a fraction lies between 0 and 1, okay, it is always smaller than 1. So a fraction which is smaller than 1 will be called as a proper fraction. And remember, in a proper fraction, the numerator is always less than the denominator. For example, if we take, we can say 2 over 3, 4 over 5. You can see in this numerator, that means 2 is smaller than 3. Also 4 is less than 5. So this is a proper fraction. Now next type of fraction is improper fraction. So what is an improper fraction? It is just the opposite of proper fraction. That means if the numerator is greater than the denominator, the fraction is called as an improper fraction. So obviously if a proper fraction is smaller than 1, the improper fraction will be greater than 1. So now we can say it will always lie to the right hand side of 1 on the number line. For example, we can say 4 upon 3. So 4 upon 3, the numerator is greater than the denominator, and 7 upon 5, the numerator 7 is again greater than 5. So as a whole, if we say 4 upon 3 and 7 upon 5 will be greater than 1. Now how can we check whether it is greater than 1 or not? So for that, let us understand mixed fractions, which is the third type of fraction. Now it is a type of fraction which basically consists of a whole number part and a proper fraction. Now as the name flashes mixed fraction, it will be obviously a mix of something, right? So mixed of what thing? You have done it already, like 2.5 or any other number. So with an example, if I take 43 upon 4. Now 43 upon 4 is written as 10 whole number 3 upon 4. How we have written this? Let me tell you here with an easy example, 2.5 also. So what do you understand by 2.5? You can directly say 5 upon 2. But how you are getting, or from this how you are converting this? Let us see. If a fraction is given to you as 43 by 4. Now it is a proper or improper fraction? Right. Since here the numerator is greater, so we say this is an improper fraction. And remember, only an improper fraction can be converted to a mixed fraction. Because now when you divide 43 by 4, what answer you will get? 4 one time is 4. When you subtract, you get a 0. After that you carry down 3 and then 4 zeros are 0 with a 3 as a remainder. That means now you know that this part is called as the quotient, this is called as a remainder, and this is called as the divisor. So how do we write? We write first the quotient part, then we write the remainder part, and then we write the divisor. So it becomes 10 whole number 3 over 4. So 10 whole number 3 upon 4 is the mixed fraction of 43 upon 4. So any improper fraction can be written as a mixed fraction, and any mixed fraction can also be written as an improper fraction. So from improper to mixed we have seen. Now let us see from a mixed to an improper, how we can write it. So 2.5, it means we multiply this 2 by 2 to get the number 4, and to this 4 we will add this 1. So as to get the number 5. We keep the denominator as same. So 2 whole number 1 by 2 can be written as 2 times 2, 4, 4 plus 1 is 5, and 5 over 2. So in this way we get 2.5 as 5 over 2. So remember, now we can also say one thing. 2.5, usually how in other way we can write? We can write it as 2.5. That means now a whole number part and a proper fraction, when added together, you are getting a mixed fraction, which can further be written as an improper fraction. So got it? That we can add whenever a whole number and a proper fraction is added, you can write it in the form of an improper fraction also. Now, let's move on to the next segment here, that is find out how much is the total part which is shaded. Now, if this is a whole quantity, you can easily write down that how we can say it is 5 by 2, right? So it is 1 whole, 2 whole and a half. So we can say 2.5. Or in general, we can say here that how many halves are there? If we calculate, we find that there are first, second, third, fourth and 5. 5 equal halves. So 5 equal halves means half is repeated 5 times. So 5 times of half. That means now you got the number 5 over 2, or you can write it as 2.5. So this is a way in which we can also relate this practical example. Now, let us move on to the next segment. Now, what are like fractions? We have read about proper fractions, we have read about improper fractions, then we have done mixed fraction also. But next type of fraction is like fractions. So if there is a like, there should be unlike fraction also. So these two are two more classification of fractions. So but starting with like fractions, what are they? Let's see, whenever in any type of fraction, if they have same denominators, okay, whenever two fractions have equal denominators, we say they are like fractions. So 5/8 and 3/8 are like fractions. So now you can easily define what are unlike fractions. Right, the fractions in which the denominators will be different will be called as unlike fractions. For example, 1/3 and 1/5. They are unlike fractions because their denominators are different. Remember, the numerators may be same. What we have to check is their denominators only. If the denominators are equal, they will be like fraction. If the denominators are not equal, they will be unlike fraction. One more example, we can take two whole number 2/5 and 3/8. Now a mixed fraction and an improper, but what we have to check is only their denominators, that means 5 and 8. So they are different, that means they are unlike fractions. You can also relate 5 times 2 is 10 and 10 plus 2 is 12. So this is 12/5 and 3/8. That means both numerators are different, both denominators are different, so they are unlike fractions. Numerators may be same, numerators may be different, but make sure the denominators are different for unlike fractions. So I hope like fraction, unlike fraction, proper, improper, they all are clear to you.
To watch the complete video, download the Upbind educational app from Play Store and App Store.